Well, again, everybody, this is Steve, coming to you with a quick, uh, kind of a basics of writing video. General purpose of this is just for those of you just starting out. This is essentially how writing starts. This is where you start from, how you ask the right questions, and everything you need. And in one way, it would kind of be like a world building 101. But to build the world, you have to start with the characters, because the world does not drive the book. It's the characters that drive the book. There are times that a world element can initiate some of the world building, but ultimately it's the characters that drive the story. So you always have to think about that when you're working on a book and you're working on its design and the characters that are in it and so forth like that. Because a good book is always centered around the characters, regardless of who they are. And the six basic questions you need to ask yourself when you're writing a good book, or I should say when you're starting it, when you're pioneering it, uh, is what I call the six W's. Well, I'm not the one that calls it that. There's others that call it that. I just agree with them on this. It's actually five W's and an H, but for simplicity, we call it the six W's. And as I've mentioned this before, those six questions are who, what, where, when, why, and how. And that's what we're going to explore in this hopefully quick video. I know I'm bad about being quick, quote unquote, my videos, but I have so much to share. So, there's a lot to cover, and I'll try to cover this quickly but effectively, so that you can get the basics and understand some of what is involved in initiating your worlds, creating your characters, and making them not only believable, but likable. And that also includes your villains. Your villains need to be the kind of villains that people like to hate. You don't want what I would call a bad villain, someone that everyone's like, "Ah, oh, man, just write him out. He's horrible. Let's get over to this other guy who's a better villain." That you don't want that. It sounds weird, but that's the nature of the beast. Anyhow, first question to ask: who? Uh, okay, who is, like, for example, who is the center of your story? Who are they? Are they a knight? Are they a homemaker, a seamstress? Are they a rabbit? The characters don't have to be human when you're asking this question. You could have a rock golem if you're writing fantasy. Let's just say you have a rock golem who is the hero of the story. That might sound weird, because usually the rock golems are the guys you're running out to defeat. Well, what if you flip the script and the rock golem is the hero? I mean, there's a manga I follow where one of the heroes is a rock golem, and they have skeleton soldiers who are good guys. So you don't have to follow the cliches, and actually, it's best if you don't, because when it cut, like, for example, with fantasy writing, orcs and goblins and skeleton soldiers and rock golems and stuff like that, they're always the bad guys, and the knight in shining armor is always the good guy. So the thing is, though, that is a tried and true trope that is just well past worn out its welcome. Now, I'm not saying make the bad guy the good guy in every single series, but I'm saying change it up, be creative. Don't make it look obvious that you flipped the script. Where, ha ha ha, I got a vampire who's the good guy. We tried, people tried that, didn't work. There has to be a reason why that vampire is a good guy. Maybe he's an anti-hero like Riddick, where he's actually a bad guy, but the way he's doing things is actually good for everybody. I've seen stories use that theme, and that actually works. He's still a bad guy, but the stuff he does, even if it's self-interested, actually benefits a lot of people. So, there's different things that you can do when you come to your characters. But again, it's asking the question of who are they. So, and like I said, you can do traditional, you can do cliche, but even if you do cliche, mix it up a little. You know, be unique. Don't do what other people are doing. Find something special about them. Because too many people do too many cliche things or stuff that everybody else has done. Going back to manga, a good one for that one is the Shield Hero. or Rise of the Shield Hero. That's a manga. Normally, you know, the guy wielding the sword, the bow, and the spear are going to be the heroes. The shield guy's kind of like, yeah, you're just there for defense. Rise of the Shield Hero, the three traditional characters are the complete screw-ups. They're the ones that everybody is having to deal with because they're just a bunch of screw-ups. They're arrogant, they're cocky. You know, they make better villains than they do heroes. And it's the Shield Hero, who's kind of an anti-hero in this story, who's actually the good guy. He's the MC. He's the one that everybody's rooting for. So, you know, that's just one example of the who. Now, the what. That's the next big question. You're asking, okay, what about the what? Well, I would ask the what as in, what is the story about? What is the hero's purpose? Or what is the MC's purpose? What is the struggle you're facing? What is the challenge you're after? To use one of my own books as an example, the Off-World Chronicles. In the first book, the what is answered by the fact that the protagonist has to go through this 6,000-mile survival race, which also falls into the why and the how and other things like that, but just focusing on the what. The what that's driving the story is that 6,000-mile long survival race. I think what's probably both one of the easiest ones to answer and one of the most difficult. Because if you can't answer the what, what's your MC going to do? You know, doesn't matter who he is. If he doesn't have a good what, then he's not going to have a good driving force to do what he does, you know. If you're, you know, just tongue-in-cheek here, if your what isn't properly answered, your MC might sit around the whole book drinking tea and doing nothing. So you got to have something that motivates the MC to be who they are. Which goes back to the who. You know, who are they? Are they a knight in shining armor? Now, another what you could ask is, what kingdom? If it's a knight, what kingdom do they serve? In my Earthfleet novel, or Earthfleet universe, where I first introduced the Sergenius, which was that was the genesis of the entire Earthfleet universe, was that one ship. It was the questions on that one was like, who or what does it serve? You know, what purpose does it serve? What organization does it serve? Things like that. And like I said, you're really, when you're looking at one object, you're going to be asking all 6 questions, but I'm focusing on just one of them right now. For the, how you would ask these kind of questions, like for the what, for that starship, what is its strengths? What is its weaknesses? If it's a knight, what sword does he carry? What does he ride on? Does he ride on a steed or does he ride on a motorcycle? Because knights in shining armor don't necessarily have to be old-fashioned medieval type knights, where running around on horseback with steeds and staves and all of that kind of stuff. I've seen some really well done knight in shining armor stories where they're running around in spaceships and they're running around on motorcycles and they're running around on mechas and stuff. It's not something that has to be cliche. You can have your knight in shining armor and have them battling it out in the My Little Pony universe. So it's again, mix it up, make it creative, make it unique, make it your own. And I reference a lot of Star Trek, Star Wars, and other sci-fis like that as examples. I reference those when I'm doing these videos to give you an example that you should know if you're big into sci-fi. If you've read these books, if you've been in these universes, it gives you something relational, something that you can relate to. Go, oh, okay, so your character has similarities to this character, and I know this character, but I don't know yours. So if they have similarities, now I understand your character better. So, that's just a quick explanation of why I use those, because it's something relatable, something I can put what I have into something that you might already know. If you don't know, okay, maybe you have to go out and watch those episodes and find out what that's like. But, and it's another thing too, is going back to that, just real briefly. I don't want to get too far off because otherwise I'll run this too long. It's okay to take ideas from other universes and bring them into your universe, but don't copy them one to one. take the idea, use it as a foundation, create your own character, make them unique, make something that might have similarities, but is something entirely unique, like the from Land of the Lions, the Sadisons. I relate those kind of to the Klingons, simply because everybody knows the Klingons. Ugh, warrior, yeah, drink blood wine, Okay, now you've got a base idea to figure out who the Sadisons are. Sadisons, warriors, yeah, right across the land, go to war, do honorable, conquerable things. And of course, with the Sadisons, I don't take them like, okay, this is a rehash of the Klingons. There is a lot of elements of the Roman military in there, because like I took some things from the Klingons and redid them. I took some things from Rome. I took some things from other historical figures, like not necessarily the bad side. Well, I know I didn't take the bad side, but I took the what good elements there were from like the Mongols and how they behaved, and just I worked those into the stories and did different things with them. So that's basically what I was getting at. Anyways, enough on that rabbit trail, and we touched enough on the what to give you an idea of what to do with that. Now the where, we've already kind of covered a little bit on that. The where can be answered from a number of directions. Where do they live? Where in time are they? Which would also go with the what, like what time period are they? Are they on a different planet? Are they in a different universe? Are they in a specific kingdom that has specific laws? Maybe the knights in shining armor aren't quite so knights in shiny, because the kingdom that they live in is a very evil and oppressive. I've seen that done, where you've got knights that would seem like the hero, but they work for a despotic king, and they're actually the bad guys. So, again, mix it up, make it unique, make it your own. I'm trying to think. Oh, like with going back to the Sergenius from my Earthly universe, a good example of the where on that one was where in the universe does it operate? In my case, it was near Earth, which then also feeds over into other questions of who and why and so forth like that. When I say, where does it operate? It operates near Earth. Well, where is Earth? Obviously, we know it's in the Milky Way. But you could mix that up and say, okay, maybe this Earth isn't the Earth we know. Maybe this Earth is in a different dimension, in a different galaxy. Maybe Earth is off in the Pegasus galaxy. Maybe it's off in one of the other galaxies. Maybe it's not in, maybe it's still in our galaxy, but it's in a different part of our galaxy. So, the where is important because it sets the background. It helps to build the world that you live in, or that I should say the characters live in, because that's an important driver for any story. The when, which I kind of covered. When do they live? What period in time do they live? Is it Middle Ages? Is it modern era? Is it the future? When is more of a time question. That one's not so much location. That's a question of when. It could be, say, you have let's just say you're in a sci-fi you're writing, and it's in the middle of the Third Kingdom era. Because you look at like, I think it was Asimov who did this. It was Foundation. If I'm wrong, correct me. I'm trying to remember if it was Asimov who wrote Foundation, but if you look at Foundation, though, that series, it seems a little boring, but if you ever want to learn world building, tough your way through it. Believe me. Like I say, it's kind of boring, but he does an astounding job at world building. And he also does an astounding job at taking one story and spanning it across centuries and across multiple characters and multiple events and different things like that. He does a really, really good job with that. Yeah, it would be Asimov because the other guy I was thinking of with Arthur C. Clarke, and he wouldn't be the one. So yeah, it would be Asimov. But Arthur C. Clarke's another good one to read. Larry Niven's a good one. His world building is really good. Orson Scott Card, his is really good. Everybody knows Tolkien. His is amazing. He does really good. Tolkien's good if your world, good one to read if you're world building for fantasy. Um, oh, there's another one, and I can't remember what it was. A 5-book series like the Belgrade or something like that series. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but there was 5 books, and they were after like this intelligent stone, and that one's a good one for world building too, because it's good to read the classic authors, the ones who were really famous because they were famous because they did a really good job. And I don't want to include everybody because I've had some people who are famous authors from the past who everybody loved, and their writing really wasn't that great. So, like I bring to mind the Shiny Vampire series. I won't mention it, but I think y'all know who I'm talking about. That one was really, really popular, but it was horrible. It was badly written. Um, so not every or not every popular classic, or even recent novel that was popular is good. But if you get into writing circles, they can tell you who the really good series are and the authors are uh, for world building. 'Cause you take a look at um, who is it? C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis is a good one to read for that kind of stuff because his when is kind of interesting. When it comes to the Narnia series, the when is the 1940s during World War II. However, the when also has a second facet to it because when they go to Narnia, that when is a different time period because you're in a different world. So that one's interesting because it changes from one time period to a different time period because you're in a different world. And that's something, if you're going to be world hopping, that you have to think about. Um, to use my Off-World Chronicles for an example, when Simon left Earth, it was, ironically enough, it was like early summer. But when he got to Off-World, it was actually early spring. Different time period because you're on a different planet. So that when, changes because of his location. And that's something you'll have to consider if you're world hopping or you're universe hopping, stuff like that. Um, the why. Now, why is an interesting question. That could be asked in a sense of why are they there? Why are they doing this thing? Why are they a knight? Case of the Sergenius. Why is it here? Why is it a starship? Going back to the tossing in other questions. What is its purpose? Which is its purpose is also the why. Like why is it here? Why does it have an AI named Sarah? Going back to the what's her purpose? You see how these play into each other? These are each individual questions you have to look into, but they also play into each other. And you're going to be asking yourself a lot of these questions when you're world building and you're starting out a story. And you want to ask yourself the 6 questions and then start answering those questions, but also making notes as you do this. And don't feel like, once that question is answered, it's set in stone. It's kind of Murphy's Law of writing. No outline ever survives the rough draft. I have had incredible ideas that I've done. I've gone through my 6 questions before, asked the what, who, what, where, when, why, and how, and just filled up a notepad full of ideas, only to have up to half of them get chucked out in favor of other ideas that come into the notepad later on because the first idea didn't work or it didn't work the way it was originally written down. That's fine. If you do that, you're okay. It's nothing to freak out and panic about. Matter of fact, that's actually good because what those notes will do, and just like what these questions will do, is they get the creative juices going, they get the ideas going, they get the thought pattern or thought process going, and that's what these are here to do. They're here to kind of kick you in the butt and get you moving on the creative process, which then comes to the how. Oops, come on, you. There we go. The how is an interesting one because that can be used in a number of different ways. How is this ship important? How does this knight get around? Does he go on a horse? Does he go on a motorcycle? Does he ride on a starship? Uh, uh, how is time calculated? That's a good one because that's one I had to actually think about with. I had to think about it a little bit with my Earthfleet universe. Didn't really have to think about it much with Land of the Lions, other than there's my yawns again. Yay! I had to think. Oh, sorry. Anyways, I had to think about my time frames, which goes back to the when. Uh, but anyways, I had to think about my time frames with Earthfleet a little bit, just because they're near Earth. But that was an easy one because I had a simple calendar to work with. Offworld wasn't quite so simple. Offworld has a longer year because we have 365 days here on Earth. Offworld had 384. They also had a biannual or biannual or semi-annual. I think it was biannual. Biannual leap day. Sorry if I sound confused. My brain's not working completely right now. This is what happens when you get old. But anyways, yeah, it was because of the way that their planet went around their sun. It completed a rotation every 384 and a half days. So every other year, they had to have a leap year. And this was just a day which was completely off the calendar. It was, it wasn't off the calendar. It was on the calendar, but I mean, basically, it was a holiday. Everybody on the planet just took the day off. It didn't matter what was going on, what was happening. It was just a great big holiday. Everything shut down. Everybody relaxed. Everybody had a holiday. It was like an extended New Year because you would have their January 1st. Every other year was essentially 2 days. So you would have like New Year's Eve, the inter eve period, which was between New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and then you had New Year's Day, and that was every other year. So, I know that's getting a little off of the how on this, but that also still connects back to the how. Because you're asking like, how does time work on this planet? Now you seeing the connection a bit. You're asking, how does time work on it? How does the calendar work? How does the kingdom work? How does the authority system work? Do they have a nobility? Do they have a merit-based system? Is it a democracy? Is it a republic? Is it an empire? How does it work? How does their technology work? Do they have fantasy things? Do they have energy-based weapons? Do they have spirit-based weapons? Do they have mana-based weapons? Are they just normal, gigantic pieces of steel that you beat each other to death with? You just run up there, beat on somebody else's armor for a while. So hopefully they go down. That's a big one that you have to cover is the how. How does this work? How does that work? How does transport work? Do they run around on motorcycles? Do they run around on cars? Do they fly through the air? Do they go on horses? Take a look at Castle in the Sky from Ghibli. They had, their air travel was done by blimp, but they also had these cool little flying cars that were like this. They had like dragonfly wings, and these things were like little chariots with dragonfly wings, and like, and they'd fly around stuff. Those were kind of cool. So that answers a how of how they got around. They did have some vehicles, not a lot, but they had vehicles. So that was another form of transportation. If you want to use something that's a classic, as far as the sci-fi universe goes, look at Star Trek. You could ask, how do they get around? Well, they got warp-powered vessels. Well, how does warp work? Okay, warp works this way. Uh, you know, it's just, I'm using that as an example because that's one I think that some people could relate to pretty easily as a way to answer the how. But you can answer the how a lot, or in a lot of different ways. But oh, hang on, it broke me. Let's see. There we go. I broke it. But anyways, yeah, that's the 6 questions of good writing. Uh, and if you want to start out, you can imagine a character. You can pick a character. You can pick a world. You can say, maybe I want a world that's like the Mushroom Kingdom from Mario. Okay, fine. Go ahead and start with that premise, and then start asking these 6 questions about the things. Like if you come up with an idea for a person, run them through the ringer. Run them through these 6 questions. Make notes about them. Make notes about their history. What is their history? Where did they come from? What time period are they from? When do they come into the story? Who are they? Are they somebody, who's a filler character, temporary character, etc., etc.? Like, if you have somebody who is the MC and they're walking down the road, and like, this will probably, I say probably because I haven't really started working on it, so I don't know, but it is one of the ideas in my cat quest. The MC is this little tabby cat. And as he's going down the road, he's asking various people for different questions. And one of the people that he runs into is this traveling merchant. Well, the traveling merchant's just there long enough to help move the MC in the right direction. That's something you don't really need to ask a whole lot about, just enough to get him through that scene, and then the MC moves on, and that character's gone for permanently. They don't need to be there any longer than they absolutely have to be. It's like. In Off-World Chronicles, Benjamin Bernstein. He was there for a little while, just long enough to get the characters on to the next spot, and you never hear from him again. So it's, that's essentially, how you would want to do this. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to change your mind with these. That's part of the creative process, because what you come up with initially may not survive the rough drafts. You may come back in later on, and you wrote it one way, but this didn't really work. Okay, we'll come back and we'll completely rewrite this. I mean, go back to my Land of the Lions. I mean, I rewrote that story 3 or 4 times before I finally got it right. Gold Rush from Off-World Chronicles. I rewrote that story, I wrote that story 3 times. It was basically the original and 2 rewrites before I got it where I was happy with it. So don't be afraid to go back in and redo your story after you create it. Just create it, build your world, figure out what works, what doesn't, remove the stuff that doesn't, add in things that do, improve it. That's part of the writing process. It's part of the fun of writing. So anyways, I'm almost at 30 minutes. I tried to keep this at 15 to 20. That didn't happen. Too much to think about and talk about. But anyways, thank you guys for listening. I'll cut it off here, and on the next video, I will go over some other things that relate to my world and some of the stuff I've done on some of my intros already. Intros and overviews of my various worlds. And I will also be filling in some things that I wasn't able to show or talk about, stuff like that on those, just to help you kind of flesh out in your mind some of the characters and their sizes and stuff like that. So, anyways, thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time.